It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice, music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello everyone and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 7, Episode 13. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What's up, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, how are you, sir?
Yes. I'm doing great, brother. How about yourself?
Fantastic, man. Episode lucky number 13.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. We are definitely now over the halfway mark, I'm pretty sure, for a season of episodes. Yes. I think so.
And being number 13, this will be perfect for our moods in this season.
Absolutely. We have started out on a high note.
You know, we've said it before. I think the last episode that we decided to do, I think we should just burn every bridge and just talk all the smack that we talk about off the air. I think we just go for it and just don't worry about it.
Well, that may be sooner than you think. The way things have been going, it's definitely one of those things.
We'll just fire everybody down and burn all the bridges.
Name the names.
Burn those ashes. Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? This would be like the P. Diddy case cracked open.
It's the Rico case. Everybody's going down.
That's right. Everybody's going down. You and I may have to get witness protection following the show, but we'll do our best.
Okay.
We will.
Okay. It'll be fun when it happens.
Oh, yeah. I don't know about afterwards, but it will definitely be fun. Pretty sure we'll never work in this area again.
Darn.
So I wanted to make a clarification. Every episode for like the last, 7 seasons, we've been saying that it's getting harder and harder to find shows.
It is.
And it is. Doing some thinking and talking with some other people that had questions about this, that, and the other thing, I wanted to make some clarifications based on those statements. When I say, or when Chris says, it's getting harder and harder to find shows, we are technically talking about a certain type of show, certain level of show that, as we talked about always on this show, the Cosmick Voice, we're looking for things that give our band, our brand, and the music a lift. It has to be a positive so it continues to propel us forward. Yes, are there shows that don't do that? Yes, and they do happen. Sometimes you have the best intentions and you find out, hey, nothing happened, right? Whatever. But there are shows you know right out of the gate, if you go to this venue or you book with this particular agency or play with these particular bands, it's just another show. I understand that doing as many shows as you can, helps you hone your craft. Absolutely. But consider this, your favorite artists, Metallica, Megadeth, Motley Crue, whoever, they're just not showing up at the local watering hole. Even when they're doing that now, because that's a whole novelty thing, like say when recently, within the last year and a half or so, Motley Crue showed up under another name, even though they publicized it in some New York club or somewhere like that. It's just not your local corner bar. It's a venue with some status, some legacy, some legend to it. It creates this event and it creates lift. So again, I go back to the explanation that we're talking about a certain level of show that helps assist what we're already doing. That being said, when you're in that type of mindset, those other shows that you could just easily book 4 times a year may not do what you need them to do. Not just for your career, but for your own psychological profile in terms of being the best that you can be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we're usually talking about. Though, on the flip side of that, even finding those shows anymore are not as in abundance as they once were, especially if you're not fitting into a particular mold. Like, if your genre doesn't pull the numbers, and you know what I'm talking about, Chris, it gets harder for venues to book those bands.
Yeah, yeah.
Bands that have a greater effect on an audience in terms of not scaring them away, not sending them outside, that type of thing, drawing people to something that they can relate to, are what's popular right now, whether that's a tribute band, a cover band, a rock band. I know when they have these country nights at places, they're always packed. Nowadays, there's a tribute act. I just seen there's a tribute act for Brittany Fox. That is crazy. I just seen it on Facebook about 3 days ago. They're called Kick and Fight or something like that, because I think there was a song Brittany Fox has, Kick and Fight.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen, Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga and U2 and Marilyn Manson, and the list goes on, Kansas and Styx and Journey, and the realm is expanding. So it's not just Motley Crue and Led Zeppelin and Kiss, even though there's thousands of those as well, but all these other acts, and they are taking up more of those spots. I mean, I actually just talked to a booker as the taping of this show probably about 5 days ago, and they wanted to know the mix of songs that we did, even after knowing that we're an all-original band. And I said, well, in recent years, we have thrown in a couple covers. I go, but that's not our mainstay. I go, mainstay is we'll play 45 minutes to an hour or more, if we have to, of our own material. And that played into where we were going to get put on the bill.
Yeah.
Whether we were going to open the night and have all the cover bands finish the night, or have the cover bands open the night and then we finish the night, or were we going to be sandwiched in between? There was all this stuff, and I was like, wow, this is getting to be... Like, if you're going to do a night of covers, then you do a night of covers, and you make sure all the cover acts do something different, because nothing like hearing Jump 4 times.
Yep.
But apparently, that's what's happening. So, when we say it's getting harder and harder to find shows, this is what we're talking about. Shows that fit into our wheelhouse, because that's a hot new term again, or our niche, or our brand, or our style. Because, listen, you can jump on shows. I remember doing Afton shows years ago, and I'd be a heavy metal band, and right before me, a School of Rock band went on. I play, after me, a rap band's on. Because those Afton shows were just set up like, you sell tickets for your performance, don't worry about anybody else type of thing. And they would literally have you know what I'm talking about, they'd have a rotation of crowds. At 6 o'clock, it's all parents, aunts, and grandparents. Come 7 o'clock, it's guys in vests and long beards. So there wasn't a carryover of audience. Maybe one or two people, because there was a bar there and whatnot. But that's just a clarification. Chris wanted me to put that disclaimer up, and then there you have it.
Well, I think, Mick, another issue that we're having is the type of music. Metal is just not... I can't speak for this area. You had mentioned country. I know country in the, at least on, in our tri-state area is huge. It's been huge for years. I think the metal in this area, in the tri-state area, the metal bands have taken a hit because it's not as popular as metal is. It's very hard to get noticed or like you would say, even get a show because, even though there's a ton of metal bands, there's not many places that will do metal shows. A lot of the reason is because people just don't come out to metal shows.
It's not lucrative for the venue.
No,
we were talking about right before we went on air. I'm traveling down south to do a metal night that this venue has only once a month. And it does well because they've literally sandwiched everybody into one night.
And Mick, I can tell you for a fact, because I played there. When I played there, I don't know if it was last summer. It wasn't this past summer. It might have been the summer before. They had way more metal shows on a daily basis. And they had smaller, nationals come in on the, in the metal scene. And now they don't do as many metal shows as they used to. And that was when we played there. It was a hard rock heavy metal club, or it was known as a metal club in down south. I definitely have seen a drop off in metal shows because I am on the page of the club and I follow because we played there and we had a great time there. But I've definitely seen metal shows drop off there.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about before, a lot of these packages that are coming through aren't necessarily need or requiring local openers. They're bringing, metal is doing what a lot of other genres did. Like in the 80s, rap started packing their bills with 4 or 5 artists to help them get exposure, to help the tour, and to cover expenses. It basically offering a better package, but now the packages that metal are doing, they're just getting too expensive.
Yeah.
And the numbers that the venues are getting back to recoup just aren't even close. And a lot of people are like, no, I don't want to do that. It's getting difficult in that regard, especially for like what you're saying, like, because if you recall, prior to COVID, you know, in that 10-year span, those mid-sized venues, you were starting to get mid-sized venues bringing in larger name acts because they needed more places to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were getting available, and it was more economical for the artist rather than, you know, booking out a large venue and maybe only getting a quarter to half of it, whatever. You know, make the venue a little smaller, maybe jack the price up a couple bucks more, do a real intimate meet and greet. And these guys were coming out smelling like roses.
Yeah.
It's funny, years ago, I seen Ace Frehley in New Hope in a bar restaurant. Like literally, me and my wife went, we went early, we ate dinner. It was a real nice dinner. And not even 5-6 feet away was the stage.
Yeah.
And there's Ace Frehley playing. And the place was packed. But people were eating dinner and they were watching it. This is Ace Frehley. Fast forward a couple years later, and now he's back to playing small theaters. Yeah. But there was that time when, and even listen, honestly, I seen him in that one theater just not even a year and a half ago. I don't even think it was half full. We have these ups and downs, of course, but this is is what's happening for bands on our level that are trying to stay afloat, with the hope of just moving up the ladder little by little. And as we talked about before, just breaking even sometimes is a level of success. Staying afloat, staying in a state that you're able to at least continue to work at some capacity is a level of success, because just having that happen is difficult. I spoke to a guy just about from this time, about a week and a half ago, and after being together 3 years with his band, they are now preparing for their second show, where their first show was about a year ago. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for that. I didn't get deep into it.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, why is that? Is it the area that they're working out of? Do they have limitations in their schedule and what they actually want to accomplish? It seemed like playing out was something that they wanted to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it, but for whatever reason. That's an extreme example, but at the same time, I know that my show numbers each year do go down. Because venues that I used to go to, or, you know, when I used to do my mapping out for the year, saying, well, we're coming back into, they don't exist anymore. So now we're trying to build up new relations with new venues, new bookers since COVID. Same with you, same with tons of other bands. But at the same time, like you said, a lot of those venues, or the newer ones, have changed formats. So they're not doing what they were doing, or what they hope to do, or they've limited. It's tough. So anyway, that's a long way around to a clarification. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you understand where you're at and what's happening, you can find ways around it. We've always said this. A lot of people will turn, in my opinion, and I see it a lot, they turn a blind eye on things and they go, I'm not even going to pay attention to it. I understand that because you don't want it to cause a distraction. But at the same time, you need to be aware of it enough that you can avoid some of the pitfalls. And again, if this is what you want to do, if you're a weekend warrior, fantastic. If you're a band that's trying to do something else, maybe booking the same watering hole, dive bar, little venue in your hometown 4 times a year may not be what you want to do. If you're doing good and you do 1 a quarter, people pile out, they love what you're doing, you're selling, well then there you go. That's your hometown hero. But if you're looking to do more, maybe that's not what you want to do. Because you know what happens, especially I've seen it with metal bands. You're out of the gate, you play a club or a venue or a bar, people come out, they love you, the place wants to have you back, you get booked again, less people come out. You get booked again because they're still thinking about that very first time you played. Now this is 3 times in 1 year, say in a 12-month calendar.
Yeah.
Less people are coming out. Less people are coming out each time. All of a sudden, it's like crickets. What happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
The band hasn't changed. The music hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten better. One and done. Because there's a lot of that today.
And the problem is, too, long time ago, you could play often and people would still come out. Nowadays, if people go, if you keep playing locally, people will go, wow, I'll catch you next time because I know you'll be there, next month or in 8 more weeks or, whatever the case may be. But if you give people more options to not come, then they're not going to come.
Not going to come. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy. Again, I think if you're aware of what's happening, you can keep an eye on it, but don't have it cause a distraction for what you're trying to achieve. You can avoid some pitfalls.
Yeah.
And at least if you're doing less, but you're doing more of less, that is actually benefiting you somewhere else rather than just doing more for more's sake, and it just gets you agitated and frustrated. And I know that from personal experience.
Yeah,
I remember,
yeah, true.
And I think I've told this story, but I remember we started playing one venue like all the time. Like before you know, we were playing this venue again, and the guys in the band were all excited about it all the time because in those early days it was doing. Finally, I said to them, I said, guys, I think we got to stop playing here so much. Like it's becoming so comfortable and so complacent that we're not working on that edge.
Right, you're not progressing.
Yeah. I said, we have to change the scope here. We all fall into it. You all fall into it. It's an easy gig. You make some money. People come out. You sell some merch. The whole thing. You make the venue happy. You seem to be happy at the end. But, man, after a while, you're like, as an artist or a musician or when you're seeing the bigger picture, it's time to make a change. It's just time to make a change.
It's Russ the Boss.
Take it down.
Johnny D from Brittany Fox.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
Let's get into the topic of the show, which probably plays into some of what we've already talked about. The topic of the show is, are opening bands responsible for headliners' low attendance showings? Are opening bands responsible for headliners' low attendance showings? Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, I actually experienced something pretty close to that last year, but I'll talk about that later. Chris, what do you think, buddy? Are opening acts responsible for the showings of the audience for a headliner? How much responsibility falls on those opening acts? And when we say headliner, we're talking about somebody that's a regional and or national band. And when we say openers, we're talking about the locals. What do you think, pal?
Back in our day, when I was booking the Truck, the reason, even before I was booking the Truck, my band got to open for many, many big name national acts at the Trocadero. And we did it because at the time, the Truck wanted local bands to be represented. And then as the years go on, that's when I started booking the Truck. We sometimes put a local, when the Truck would allow us to put a local on a national bill. Sometimes it was to help the numbers, because if the locals could sell, then there'd be more people. But then there are other times, as you know, and I know you know for a fact, that sometimes there was just an opening slot that needed to be filled, and they would ask us to get a local band. I know you've been part of those. I've been part of those. But then there were times where my band at the time had outsold the national. I remember when I was in one band, we opened for Static X, and they were all excited because there were so many people in line. What they didn't seem to realize was everybody that was in line was the 200 plus tickets that we sold. A lot of people were wearing our shirts, not Static X. And it's nothing against Static X. It was a very weird time in metal. So we were responsible for bringing people in because the national just wasn't, in this case, Static X. They weren't pulling in the numbers. Again, not Static X's fault. So, are the locals responsible for low attendance on a national act? No, I don't believe so. And we've seen that because how many tours have been canceled by lack of ticket sale? Touring in this day and age, and nationals it's just not doing the numbers. I mean, they're just not. And locals, as we know, and we just spoke about, a lot of us local bands have trouble drawing our own crowd, let alone a national, bringing people in. So everybody in this day and age is just having trouble drawing people, whether it's a national, whether it's guys on our level. So no, I don't think the locals are responsible for low attendance to a national show, because the nationals aren't even drawing them. Because even if you book a national and you put 2-3 local bands on, and everybody's selling tickets, which I am at the time recording this, I'm dealing with myself, that doesn't guarantee that those people are going to be around for when the national comes on. If you have people that are, that are willing to pay tickets to help you and your band, do this show, it helps the venue, of course, which I'm super happy about. There's nothing saying that those people are going to stay for the national. They're going to see your band and go. We've talked about that also. There's this thing now where, people come and see the band that they want to see, and then they leave. I mean, that's been going on forever, but I feel like as I've gotten older and time has gone on, I feel like it's a real big issue now, because even the younger bands, even the young guys don't stick around anymore. It's just not that camaraderie that there used to be. And I don't want to sound like a bitter old man, I'll get off my lawn kind of guy, but it's the truth, man. I play with a lot of younger bands, and the younger bands just don't have that loyal live music metal band following. They come out and see their friends, and then they leave. It's just how it is. So if I sell, 100 tickets to a national show and everybody leaves, even just say 80 people leave, well, there's nothing I could do about that. That is the nationals' responsibility, but the nationals aren't even drawing numbers. So to answer the question of the episode, no, I don't believe that we, and I'm going to put me in that category, I don't believe we openers are responsible for the nationals' low attendance. We're there to help it. That's why a lot of these, I'm talking about the metal category or genre, that's why all these metal bands that tour with 4, 5, 6 bands. It's a numbers game. You hope that, maybe people aren't coming to see the national or the headliner, but hopefully they're going to come and see one of the openers, and hopefully they'll stick around. That's why all these bands are touring with 5 or 6 bands. It's just how it is. So no, I don't know what your answer is, but I see you shaking your head. Yeah, so you do agree with me on some points, but I don't believe so. I think that nationals are responsible for their own crowd. Locals are just there and added on to help the show, which I am all for. I think it's a great idea. This isn't something new. But no, I think touring and getting crowds out to live music is just not what it used to be.
I absolutely agree. I mean, look, local openers primarily are there to help the venue recoup. That's it. And in some severe cases, they're brought on to help pay for the headliner, because by selling tickets. Because the headliner themselves, depending on the headliner, but they don't go out with a stack of tickets and go, hey, you want to buy a ticket? You want to buy a ticket? You want to buy it? You don't even see them at their merch table selling tickets. They may have a link set up on their site. Absolutely. That's kind of the way things go. But they're not actually out there, hitting the pavement selling physical tickets. It just isn't happening. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that does. Absolutely. But when we're talking about this headliner, we're talking about someone who's regionally large, has a hit, has been around, maybe a legacy, national, same thing. Right. Whether that hit was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 45 years ago, it doesn't matter. They're carrying something that the local bands don't have. That's part of their legacy. That's part of that whole reason that they're there.
Right.
So local openers are filling a bill. For some reason, which I don't understand, when you go to a national show at your local arena, at best, there's 2 bands. I do remember in the 80s, there were 3 bands at the Spectrum. I remember seeing Britney Fox, Kix, and Rat at the Spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. The first band's playing 30 minutes, second band's playing maybe 35 minutes. They were great shows. You weren't bogged down by, but at the same time, those openers were nationals. These were major recording artists. So you were really getting your money's worth, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
When you're going out there to see that. And even then, like what we thought were expensive ticket prices in 87, they weren't.
Yeah.
So truth,
Facts.
man. I remember like $13.50 you get to go down to the Spectrum. And I know it was even cheaper than that.
I have a ticket stub for Van Halen in the 1984 tour. It was $17.50.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And that was a big tour.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But, fast forward now, 2024, 2025, and so on, you're paying more than that at a local venue, and you're seeing a bunch of bands that you never heard of. Now, again, I'm not critiquing that and saying, well, that's a bad thing. This is how bands get exposure. And these are important shows in terms of band resumes,
right,
band profiles, band promotion. But it also gives you the experience of what it's like to play in front of slightly larger crowds that are there for somebody else, and it gives you an opportunity to work that crowd, to win that crowd over. They're such a learning experience. It's unbelievable. It really is. And it's not just the playing, it's knowing what you have to do to get on stage, get off stage. I still see it today that there's no stage etiquette in terms of getting on, getting off, setting up your equipment. We've talked about this before, but that's not what this show's about. Is it the responsibility? Absolutely not. If I was opening up for Judas Priest and they were relying on me to bring in people, the tables have turned for sure. My pay grade needs to come up if I'm taking on that type of responsibility.
Yep.
So, case in point, I had a situation happen to me very similar to this, which prompted this topic being put on the episode list. I'm not mentioning the band. I'm not going to say any names. Not saying the venue. I don't. You know that we don't. If you've listened to the show, we don't do that kind of thing. It's not about throwing under the bus. We use these things as example and as a learning experience because after all the years of being in this business, if you want to call it, this is the first time I've ever experienced anything in this way. So primarily, my band's an opening act. We're a support act. I'm really happy with that. I love being that way. I really do, because I get to piggyback on promotion. I have less stress. My financial responsibility is not past a point that, I have to remortgage my entire life to do anything. So I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Do we headline every so often? Yeah, but they're just like little shows here. And I've said this before, like when we've been overseas, because there are tours, we've headlined over there. But that's the overseas, that's not here. Anyway, this is a band I've played with a number of times. I know several of the members on a personal type basis. Not that we're having dinner every night or calling each other when our dog died, but there's conversation here and there and so on and so forth. Emails exchanged. Well, following the show, I guess maybe about a week or so following, I get a message from the band, individual, ripping me a new one about booking a show in the same state a week before their show, telling me that that's bad business, I should know better, it takes away from the show and all this kind of stuff, and that their numbers were so low for that show, it basically had to be because of the show that we booked.
Hilarious.
On the other side of the state a week before.
Hilarious.
Needless to say, I was kind of shocked by this. I had to read it like 4 times just to make sure that I was kind of picking up on what was happening here. Thinking through, I'm saying, this guy's talking to me as if I'm on the same level as him. Though I'm flattered, bud, I'm not. It just doesn't work that way. So I took a step back. I sat on it for maybe about an hour. I thought through it, and then I responded. And I basically said, hey, thanks for reaching out. Appreciate it. Understand what you're saying. Not that in this world do I feel a need to ever have to explain myself to another human being who's not paying my bills. For the sake of the business, my band's reputation, and our business ethos, I address this in a certain way. And I said, that show you're speaking of, I had booked months in advance before this show. Not knowing that this show was going to happen, simply because we were contacted last minute to fill in for a band who dropped off. And in the effort to do good business and maintain quality relations, we took it because the venue and owner have always been supportive of us, and they were in a pinch. So I says, okay. I said that we were given a small handful of tickets just about a week prior to the show. A little more than a week, I'd say, maybe a week and a half. Which I went on to say that we moved. We sold all of them and fulfilled our obligation or our promise to the venue. I go, handful of those tickets were actually sold the week before at that other show. Quick rewind. The funny thing is half of that crowd that was there, Chris, you were there that night,
I was.
And I told you half of that crowd there was at the show the
Yep.
week before on the other side of the state.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So then I go on. I says, I understand exactly what you're saying because bands of my level are being phased out for a number of reasons. Because we don't have a legacy hit. We've been around too long, our genre, and or our age. I go, so when a gig is offered to us, my job is to keep my guys working. And that's how we conduct business. And that was it. I left it at that. As Chris even pointed out, we can sell tickets. It doesn't mean people are going to show up.
That's right.
I've actually had the experience, and people go, oh, that's crazy. Why would people do that? Believe me, they do it. Why they do it, I don't know. Would I do it? Nah. Yeah, it happens. But we often sell tickets to people that will never come to the show for whatever reason.
I think it's done out of love, support, help. Because I've done that to other bands before. I go, listen, I'll buy a ticket to help you out, and then just give the ticket away. Like, just do whatever you want with it, but I want to help support. I want to do my part in helping the show, but I can't make it. Give it to somebody.
Right. I agree. Yeah, it happens. The band that sells the tickets, the artist who sells the tickets, can't be held responsible what happens to that ticket after it's sold. You've done your job. That's it. Then, if that person shows up to the show, it's not your responsibility what that person does. They can leave anytime they want. You know, in a catch-all phrase, it's America, man. And I know people outside of America listen to it, but if you want to leave, you can leave anytime you want. You're not held by armed guard. I can't be responsible if the bands before, during, after either chase the audience away, the audience has no interest, don't know who they are, gets a headache, is tired, decides they want to go eat, got the runs from bad beer. I can't control any of that.
That's right.
The other thing that I had pointed out to that gentleman is that because we were put on so late, we were the dead opener.
Right.
Dead opener. We went on at 7:30.
Yep.
And we knew that going into it. We were just happy to play. Again, because it's good business.
It is.
If somebody's going to honor you, treat you well, you do the same thing. If it didn't work for our schedule, we wouldn't have done it. But it did. And we were like, okay, we'll do it. You know, it's not a problem. We were so late on the show, we weren't even on the posters. And I pointed that out to the individual. I said, if you looked at all the posters, we weren't even listed on the poster. The band who wasn't there got more promotion than we did.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But that's not why I did it. Anyway, a little more information. Oh, you know, we've played here 5 times in the last 18 months. Well, as we talked about earlier in the show about looking for that better gig, you sometimes get into a habit, you keep going back to the same watering hole. Well, sooner or later, the water dries up.
Yep.
It's one thing if you're a local band. It's another thing if you're a regional, national touring band. After a while, listen, you know it, I know it. KISS could come back into form today and book 1 show a month at Wells Fargo for the next 18 months, and every month that place would be packed.
Billy Joel's been doing it for years.
Right.
At Madison Square Garden.
But that's KISS.
Right.
That's a whole different thing.
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
Is it the opener's responsibility? No. And if it ever does become the opener's responsibility, then the headliner should not be on tour. Simple as that.
Simple as
Listen,
that.
and that's not
Simple
being
as that.
mean. That's not being abrasive. I'm not being cocky and whatever. Listen, man, I opened up at 7:30. 7:30. People are still on the road going home from work.
Yep.
I played in front of a small handful of people. I enjoyed it. It was great. But come on. Unfortunately, I guess what ruffled everybody's feathers is by the time the band went on, almost 11 o'clock, because of other bands not knowing good stage etiquette to get on and off, the band got pushed further and further. People get tired. Like, oh my God, another one?
Yep. It's true.
Honestly, 4 or 5 bands before an opener, that's crazy. It exhausts the ears.
It does. It does.
It really does. It's not like it's top-notch sound all the time.
No. Nope.
I mean, some of these venues don't have the greatest sound system, don't have the greatest sound man. They don't understand that less is more, that kind of thing. Or you have that mentality, well, these are just opening acts, I'm not really worried about it. But nobody wants to listen to something that's no good.
Right.
It just wears on you.
Right.
That's something else that we could talk about forever. But it's not openers' responsibility to pack the house. Like Chris said, we assist. We assist by bringing our fans in. But at the same time, if all the weight is put on those shoulders of the opening acts, well, then their pay should go up. Yep. Nobody's going to go nuts for $2 a ticket.
Yeah.
Hey, you got 50 tickets to sell. Well, that's $100. Okay. That's a lot of work to do for $100.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay? This ain't 1963 where $100 it pay your rent, buy your food, maybe get a small dinner out, whatever, and you still have some money to hit the movie theater and put something away. No mo. No mo.
No mo. No mo.
It's a bit crazy. I was able to laugh it off after just going through and saying, this is just, I'm not even sure where this guy's mind is. Like, people just kind of lose it.
Let's be honest, man. His ego was hurt because there was nobody there.
There was nobody there. And I do have to say that the later they went on, there was less people when they went on than when we went on.
Yep.
And I watched the decline throughout the night. Yeah. Listen, that could be a lot of different things. It could be the mix of bands. It could be, like Chris said, these guys buy tickets to come out to see the band that they bought the ticket from. And then they really don't have any other interest. It's a matter of support. It's a matter of convenience. It's a matter of anything that they want it to be. That's kind of the freedom of the world today. They don't want to stay, they don't stay.
Yep.
But you cannot talk to bands that, like, hey, listen, I never had a radio hit like that. I never was an MTV star. Why would that responsibility even be, why would that consideration even be put on a band like that?
Exactly.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, when was the last time they went on at 7:30? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's just a crazy thing. That's demonstrating to me how twisted and mixed up the business is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because nobody's making money making music. So they're trying to make money playing music. And I get the mentality. I get it. I get the model. You play whenever, wherever you can, because it's better than not, because you'll get something, and something is better than nothing. Totally get it. Totally get it. But if that's the decision you make, this is when I'm saying you need to be aware of the possible pitfalls, the possible danger zones. You don't have to dwell on it, but be mindful of it. And when you understand that, you can avoid it or accept certain things. Like, well, listen, I get it. I'm going into a venue. It's hit or miss. Let's give it a shot. Or it's this time of the year, or this is happening, or all of a sudden it's now 6 feet of snow, but I'm here at the show. Let's see who's going to, whatever. I mean, there could be anything. But my point is, if you're getting so delusional, as Chris pointed out, and you're not seeing any of that, then it becomes a blame game. And if you're blaming, because again, I needed to address this in a certain manner, certain politeness. I'm being accused of something that I had no idea about, no involvement in, because how can I, as someone who manages a band, be responsible for another band that I have nothing to do with?
Right.
It doesn't make sense, right? And then somebody who has nothing to do with what I do is going to criticize how I'm doing things for my band. That's just crazy. That's just craziness.
Yeah.
One doesn't necessarily affect the other. If I was on stage and my singer said, don't stay for the headlining act, they're the worst thing ever, then I would say, okay, I get what you're saying. Maybe we had something to do with whatever. But that is not the case, at least not with us.
Nope.
So, yeah, I mean, when you start doing this blame game, you start getting a little crazy, and I think that's just the twistedness that's happening in the industry. People just don't know what to do anymore, and they're grasping at straws. Guys are holding on to something that they may never ever really had a strong grip to begin with, And it's like sand. It's just, the grains of sand are just kind of coming through your grip. Like Princess Leia said, the tighter and tighter you grip, the more star systems fall through your fingers. But anyway, that's where we're at, man. It's a crazy time. At the end of the day, everybody has to kind of focus on what they're doing. But I think you have to be very mindful about who you're pointing fingers at, when really the responsibility comes back to you.
Right.
There
It
is
does.
strength in that. There really is. Accept what you're doing. Sleep in the bed you made. Take responsibility for it. Try to avoid those mistakes. But guess what? You don't have successes unless you make mistakes. And you don't know they're mistakes until you make mistakes.
That's right.
And then there should be growth from those mistakes. Following up on the situation that happened sometime later, apparently there was not anything learned from the situation, because that relationship with the venue may have been burned as well due to this situation that also went elsewhere, not dealing with me or my band, but I was just a piece of it. Hey, listen, I appreciate being put on the same plateau as some of these bigger bands. Thank you very much. But, like Rocky said, I know exactly where I'm at. Thank you. I'm just a ham and egger. I'll always be a good spar partner. I'll never pull any punches. What do you think, buddy? You got anything else you want to add?
No, man, not at all. This episode is pretty black and white. Sometimes we hit these gray areas, but now this is pretty simple. This one pretty much speaks for itself.
Yeah, I like simple. I'm simple.
Me too. Me too.
All right, if you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. If you have a question, a topic idea, or something you want us to address, just contact us through our Facebook page at The Cosmick Voice. You can listen to The Cosmick Voice at Spotify, Breaker, Apple, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and at thecosmicview.com. Check us out on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of The Cosmick Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmickvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmick Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to The Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.